Imagine being on a treadmill. You are 5'9", you currently weigh 116 pounds, and you are actively starving your own body.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and your heart is beating so erratically that you realize, like, in real time, I am about to die right here on this gym equipment.
Right. It's terrifying.
And the absolute craziest part of this whole scenario, you are doing this to yourself because you genuinely believe this is what success looks like.
I mean, it is the ultimate paradox of modern ambition, right?
Yeah.
We have somehow created a culture where slowly killing yourself through stress or starvation or exhaustion is just frequently interpreted as this profound display of work ethic.
Yeah, totally.
We look at someone running themselves into the ground, and we don't see a medical emergency. We see a high achiever.
Exactly. We are looking at a landscape of modern success that is just incredibly murky right now. Because on paper, someone can look like they're winning the race, checking every single box on the rubric.
Right, the perfect resume.
Yeah. But internally, their engine is completely tearing itself apart.
Yeah.
So today, we are taking a very close look at the mechanics of that breakdown. We are doing a deep dive into the paradox of perfectionism, the absolute paralysis of fear, and this incredibly counterintuitive process of surrendering control to find actual purpose.
I'm so glad we are doing this.
Me too. And our source material for this deep dive is Lara Casey's deeply personal book, Make It Happen. Surrender your fear, take the leap, live on purpose.
And you know what makes this text so compelling is that it completely abandons that sterile, bullet-pointed approach to self-help.
Oh, thank goodness for that.
Right. It's really an autopsy of her own burnout. She is dissecting why we consistently choose the misery of unattainable perfection over, like, the messy, unglamorous reality of actually living on purpose.
Yeah.
And she knows her audience implicitly. Like, she knows the person reading her book, or honestly, listening to this conversation right now is likely running on fumes.
Oh, for sure.
They're paralyzed by information overload and caught in that terrifying trap of feeling like they are simultaneously not enough, and yet somehow way too much.
That is such a real feeling. And she actually issues a direct challenge right at the beginning of the book, which I love. She asks the reader to mentally and physically pause.
This is the fun thing.
Right. To stop scrolling on their phone as an avoidance tactic. So honestly, wherever you are right now, whether you're commuting or doing the dishes or just staring at your inbox, just mentally hit pause for a second.
Just take one breath.
Exactly. Take one actual intentional breath. Because to really deconstruct these feelings, we have to pull ourselves out of that frantic background noise for a minute.
We really do. And she targets that underlying buzzing anxiety immediately with this deeply visceral defining metaphor. I mean, she doesn't start in a boardroom. She starts in a delivery room.
Yeah, that caught me off guard.
It's so powerful, though. She uses the birth of her daughter, Grace, to perfectly encapsulate the illusion of control that drives so much of our daily anxiety.
It is a really intense scene. I mean, she's in labor, and her internal monologue is entirely focused on dominance over the situation.
She's just fighting it.
Yeah. Her mantra is, I can control this. It's my body. I can make this happen. So she is actively, violently fighting the immense physical pain of childbirth.
Which, physiologically speaking, is the absolute worst thing you can do during labor.
Wait, really? The worst thing?
Oh, yeah. When you fight pain, your sympathetic nervous system flares up, your muscles tense, your breathing becomes super shallow, and the pain actually amplifies.
Oh, wow. So she's making it harder on herself.
Exactly. By trying to micromanage the contractions, she is creating this wall of resistance that the natural biological process just has to constantly batter against.
Jeez. And she says the harder she fights, the more overwhelming the tension becomes. Like, she describes having just enough time between contractions not to actually rest, but to just doubt her own ability to survive the next one.
Which is just a recipe for panic.
Right. She starts panicking, literally pleading for a way out of the process. And then at the absolute peak of this panic, she has this sudden, clarifying realization.
The big turning point.
Yes. She realizes there was no way out but through.
And that phrase right there is the thesis of the entire experience.
Yeah.
Surrendering control wasn't giving up. It wasn't, a sign of weakness.
No, not at all.
It was a biological and psychological prerequisite for new life to begin. She had to drop the resistance to just allow the process to happen.
Wow.
And then she takes this incredibly extreme physical experience and she uses it as a lens to examine our everyday chronic burnout.
Yeah, she takes that exact same dynamic, fighting the pain, trying to control the uncontrollable, and she maps it onto the dead-end job or the failing marriage or even just the laundry that never stops piling up.
The endless laundry.
The endless laundry. She writes about the frantic, exhausting need to control every single aspect of our time and our money, which ironically led her to become a burned-out workaholic buried by debt and severe depression.
It's a vicious cycle.
It really is. I mean, why do we do this? Why do we grip the steering wheel tighter when the car is actively skidding on the ice?
Well, it really comes down to how the human brain processes modern threats. Like, evolutionarily, when we faced a threat, it was physical and it was immediate.
Like a bear or something.
Exactly, a predator, a fire. We could run or we could fight. But today, our threats are abstract and they're chronic. It's the threat of financial ruin or social rejection or professional failure.
And you can't punch financial ruin in the face.
Exactly. Because we cannot physically fight these abstract concepts, our primary defense mechanism is to attempt to hypermanage our physical environment.
Oh, I see.
We operate under this delusion that if we can just control every single variable, like if we can answer every email instantly, if our house is spotless, if our schedule is perfectly optimized, we can build a fortress against bad things happening.
But the human brain is not like a supercomputer designed to process and control that many variables simultaneously. It makes me think of being trapped in one of those Chinese finger traps, you know?
Oh, that is a great analogy.
Like, the harder you pull your fingers apart to try and escape the tension, the tighter the bamboo grips you. Your very instinct to fight your way out is exactly what is locking you into the trap.
Right.
The friction you create by resisting reality is what actually causes the burnout.
Yes. The micromanagement just creates a localized state of constant, low-level panic. You are perpetually treating non-lethal situations as life or death variables.
But wait, I actually need to challenge the premise of the solution here for a second. Is surrender actually a passive act?
How do you mean?
Because culturally, the word surrender makes it sound like you're just throwing your hands up, laying on the floor, and saying, whatever happens, happens.
All right, like waving a white flag.
Yeah. But it seems to me that in the context of giving birth or facing down massive debt, surrender actually requires significantly more active courage than fighting does.
Okay, that is a crucial distinction. Surrender, in the context Casey uses it, is absolutely not passive resignation. It is highly active.
Okay, so what does it actually look like?
It is the conscious, deeply uncomfortable choice to stop expending your finite energy on things you cannot control, like the unpredictable nature of the future or what other people think of you.
Oh, yeah. That takes work.
It does. And instead, you channel that exact same energy into navigating the reality of the present moment. It takes immense bravery to drop the armor of control, because that armor is the only thing making us feel safe, even if it is simultaneously suffocating us.
And when we drop that armor, we feel entirely exposed. So to understand why surrendering that illusion of control is so terrifying, we really have to look at what we were being culturally conditioned to chase instead.
The toxic pursuit of perfect.
Yes, this incredibly toxic pursuit of perfect.
Casey illustrates the contrast of this pursuit so beautifully by examining two very different lives within her own family tree. On one hand, you have her grandfather, Cecil.
Oh my gosh, his life sounds so idyllic. Like he found profound, simple joy in three things: his wife Celeste, his Bible, and his vegetable garden.
This sounds amazing.
Right. He loved his homegrown early girl tomatoes so much that he would meticulously wrap them in newspaper-padded boxes and literally mail them to his daughter when she was away at college.
I love that so much.
The book describes his life as a beautiful, soothing creek.
Yeah, it's a life defined by slow, deliberate, intrinsic motivation. I mean, Cecil isn't growing tomatoes to win some agricultural award or to prove his worth to his neighbors.
He's just growing tomatoes.
Right. He is growing them because the act itself brings him joy, and sharing them brings him connection.
Yeah, but then, in stark contrast, Casey describes her own early life not as a creek, but as an avalanche, like frozen water crashing down a mountain at breakneck speed, just destroying everything in its path.
That is quite the image.
She wanted glamour, she wanted travel, she wanted standing ovations, and her pursuit of that external validation leads her straight into Carnegie Mellon's elite music theater program.
Which is, an environment fundamentally engineered around perfection and intense competition. It is the absolute antithesis of the tomato garden.
Oh, totally. At her convocation ceremony, the faculty actually tells the incoming class to look to your left, look to your right, one of you won't be standing here at graduation.
That is so intense for day one.
Right. They explicitly set the stage for survival of the fittest. So she goes from being the undisputed star of her high school to being surrounded by literally the best of the best in the country.
And she's working 50 hours a week on top of her classes.
Yeah, and suddenly the feedback isn't standing ovations anymore. The feedback is just work harder.
This is a classic sociological tactic used in highly competitive environments.
Mm-hmm.
By utilizing exclusionary rhetoric like that, look to your left, look to your right, speech institutions manufacture artificial scarcity.
Okay, artificial scarcity. What does that do to a student?
Well, they condition the students to believe that success is a zero-sum game. If the person next to you succeeds, it means you are one step closer to being eliminated.
But I mean, is that environment inherently toxic, or is it just human nature to internalize that kind of competitive pressure as a measure of our actual soul's worth? Like, is the environment the poison, or are we the ones voluntarily drinking it?
It's really a systemic interaction that hijacks our evolutionary biology. Human beings are inherently social creatures, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're wired for belonging.
Sure.
In our Paleolithic past, being separated from the tribe meant literal death by starvation or predation.
So it's life or death to our brains.
Exactly. So when an authority figure tells you that your belonging in this elite group is highly conditional and based entirely on outperforming your peers, it triggers that ancient survival instinct. We internalize it because, to our primitive brain, being kicked out of the program feels like a threat to our literal survival.
Which explains the horrifying physical manifestation of her chase for perfection. I mean, it wasn't just a mental burden. Her body became the battleground.
It's so sad to read.
It really is. She starts hiding her natural curly hair and her freckles, trying to fit this highly specific, standardized mold of what a leading lady should look like, and then she develops a severe eating disorder.
Yeah.
This is how she ends up at 5'9" tall, dropping to a terrifying 116 pounds.
She was scrutinizing herself in the studio mirrors, spending hours on the treadmill, literally consuming magazines for expert advice on how to get slim by Sunday.
Oh, those magazines.
I know. But perfectionism, in this extreme state, isn't about maintaining high standards or having a healthy work ethic. It is a desperate psychological attempt to quantify self-worth.
Because she feels she doesn't have any without it.
Right. When a person feels inherently inadequate, they look for external, measurable metrics to prove they're allowed to exist. For Casey, it was the scale, it was the audition callbacks, the mirror.
And it all culminates in that terrifying breaking point on the treadmill that we talked about at the beginning. Her heart is pounding erratically. She has this intense anxiety attack, and she literally senses an internal divine warning telling her that she is going to die from this if she doesn't get off the machine right now.
It was a literal wake-up call.
Yeah, she had to stop chasing her idea of perfect, or it was actually going to kill her. And the tragic irony is that in her desperate attempt to be the best at life, she very nearly lost her life entirely.
The treadmill incident is just the perfect physical manifestation of her psychological state. She is running incredibly fast, burning immense amounts of energy, suffering deeply, and going absolutely nowhere.
Yes, wow. But that terrifying moment on the treadmill didn't just happen in a vacuum. It was the result of a mindset governed by these invisible rules. Casey calls this the crushing weight of the shoulds.
Oh, the shoulds. They are the invisible architects of our daily anxiety. They are the culturally constructed mandates that we just accept without question.
Yeah, she realizes that modern success is almost always disguised as a should. You know, you should work late if you want to be considered for the promotion.
You should sacrifice your weekends for career growth.
Right. You should have a meticulously decorated house by the time you're 30. You should climb the ladder now so you can enjoy life decades from now when you retire.
And we adopt these arbitrary rules, and we treat them as biological imperatives. We treat the thought, I should have a perfectly clean house for these guests with the exact same neurological urgency as I need to find fresh water.
That's insane when you put it like that.
It is, and this creates massive cognitive dissonance.
Can you break down exactly how that cognitive dissonance works in this specific context?
Yeah, absolutely. So cognitive dissonance is the acute mental pain you experience when you hold two conflicting beliefs, or when your actions contradict your core values. For example, deep down, your core value might be that being a good parent means being present and emotionally available for your child. But you have adopted the societal secret, should that a good parent must provide this, like upper middle class lifestyle, which require you to work 80 hours a week.
Oh, I see the conflict.
Right. The friction between your core value of presence and the adopted should of financial excess creates a deep, painful dissonance.
So what does the brain do?
Your brain tries to resolve this pain by simply working harder, trying to achieve both simultaneously, which leads directly to burnout.
Man, and we trap ourselves in this endless loop of seeking inspiration to fulfill these impossible shoulds. We scour magazines, the internet, social media, looking for the exact blueprint of how we should be living.
Which never helps.
No. Paradoxically, consuming all that idealized content only deepens the cognitive dissonance. It just reinforces the massive gap between our messy, tired reality and their perfectly curated feeds.
You're constantly comparing your unedited behind-the-scenes footage to everyone else's highlight reel.
Yes. I think about the shoulds like malware running silently in the background of your computer's operating system.
Oh, that's a perfect way to look at it.
Right. Like these rules don't actually serve any functional purpose for your unique life, but because they are installed deep in your programming, they constantly drain your battery, they slow down your processing power, they heat up your hard drive until the fan is screaming.
Yeah, and you don't even know what's happening.
Exactly. The craziest part is most of the time you don't even realize the malware is installed. You just wake up and think, wow, my brain is running really slow and hot today. I must need more coffee.
Right, you blame yourself.
You completely miss that you are spending 40% of your daily cognitive energy processing guilt over things you don't even genuinely care about.
Well, and Kay Santan addresses this by bringing in a concept from her friend Emily Lay, advocating for holding oneself to a standard of grace, not perfection.
But letting the shoulds go has real-world consequences, doesn't it? I mean, it might mean your laundry sits in a basket for 3 days. It might mean you actively miss out on a networking opportunity. You have to grieve the fantasy of being perfect.
That's the trade-off, yeah.
But the flip side is that you get undistracted dinners with your family. You get genuine human connection. You get room to breathe.
It is a radical reevaluation of your return on investment.
How so?
Well, the energy spent maintaining the illusion of perfection yields a very low return on actual sustained happiness. But the energy spent on grace, on being present in the messy reality, yields a massive return on genuine connection and psychological stability.
So take a look at your own mental desktop right now. What specific malware are you currently running? What is the should that is draining your battery today?
It's a great question to ask.
Because if dropping the shoulds leads to a happier, more connected life, the obvious logical question is, if the cage door is wide open, why don't we just fly out?
Because the space outside the cage is terrifying. We have conditioned ourselves to believe that the treadmill is the only thing keeping us valuable. If we step off, we have to face our fear of obsolescence.
And Casey talks about fear as this constant companion, like a heavy load that she literally wishes a John Deere fear extractor could just roll up into her driveway, hook up to her brain, and haul away.
It's a great image, honestly.
Yeah.
But since that machinery doesn't exist, she offers one of the most useful psychological frameworks in the text. She makes a vital distinction between normal fear and abnormal fear.
Yeah, this is huge for me. So normal fear is biological. It's rational. Normal fear is what stops you from touching a hot stove or jumping off a literal cliff. It is designed to keep your physical body alive.
Right. But abnormal fear is purely psychological.
Okay.
Abnormal fear is what stops you from taking a leap of faith. It doesn't protect your physical body. It protects your ego. It creates a false reality where you feel threatened even when nothing physical has actually happened yet.
She gives some incredibly raw, real-world examples from these making things happen workshops she runs. Like she has women sharing their deepest, most paralyzing fears out loud.
Those stories were so heavy.
Yeah. Things like, I'm afraid that if I pursue a career outside my degree, my parents will be profoundly disappointed in me. Or, I am afraid my infertility makes me a complete failure as a woman. Or, I'm afraid to trust my own judgment because of the mistakes I made in my 20s.
The methodology Casey suggests for dealing with this abnormal fear is crucial.
Yeah.
I mean, her approach is not to crush it. It's not to ignore it, and it's certainly not to bury it.
Because burying it never works.
Never. Because buried fear doesn't die. It just ferments. It always pops back up, usually stronger and in a much more destructive form.
It's like trying to hold a giant beach ball underwater. Eventually your arms get tired, you lose your grip, and the ball rockets up to the surface and smacks you right in the face.
Precisely. So instead, her methodology is that you must meet your fear. You have to sit across the table from it and treat it almost like a person you are interrogating.
Interrogating your fear.
Yeah. By defining the fear, by articulating its specific origin and what exactly you are afraid of losing. whether that's your reputation, your comfort, your perceived security. You strip the fear of its formless, overwhelming power.
That makes a lot of sense.
A named fear is a manageable variable. An unnamed dread is a paralyzing force.
But wait, is abnormal fear really just an evolutionary misfire? Like, are we processing a failed startup the exact same way a caveman processed a saber-toothed tiger?
Neurologically, yes, absolutely. The amygdala, which is the primitive part of the brain responsible for processing fear and threat detection, does not differentiate well between a physical threat to your life and a psychological threat to your social standing.
Wow, really?
Yeah. When you contemplate starting a new business and risking public failure, your brain floods your central nervous system with cortisol and adrenaline as if a predator has just entered the room.
So how does meeting the fear help with that?
Meeting your fear, bringing it into the light and defining it, is a way of engaging the prefrontal cortex, the logical, modern, reasoning part of the brain. The prefrontal cortex can then send a signal to the amygdala, say, stand down. We are not being chased by a tiger. We are just sending an email.
We are just sending an email. It is amazing how much biological chaos we put ourselves through over an inbox.
It really is.
But, it makes total sense that we fear failure or the loss of our security. That tracks logically with self-preservation. But the deepest, most counterintuitive trap that Casey uncovers in this book requires its own dedicated analysis. Because we aren't just afraid of failing, we are absolutely terrified of succeeding.
Oh, yes. The fear of success is one of the most common, yet least discussed, forms of self-sabotage.
It seems like a complete paradox, right? Why would anyone fear the very thing they are working so hard to achieve?
It sounds crazy on the surface.
But Casey outlines the hidden mechanics of this perfectly. True success forces you completely out of your comfort zone. It invites a much bigger stage, which means a much larger audience for your potential future failures.
There's also the fear of interpersonal fallout. People fear that success might change them, make them selfish, or alienate them from their current friend group who might resent their growth.
And the one that hit way too close to home for me? The fear that if you succeed, you will be trapped in an endless cycle of having to maintain that new, high level of productivity forever.
Oh, the pressure of expectations.
Yes. The thought process is, if I show my boss or my audience that I can operate at this elite level once, they will expect me to do it every single day, and I will eventually die of exhaustion.
The psychological weight of sustained expectation is crushing, and this leads directly to massive subconscious self-sabotage.
How does that play out?
We decide that true success is reserved for superheroes. And since we know all our own flaws and consider ourselves ordinary, we shrink back. We watch from the sidelines. We don't launch the product. We don't apply for the promotion because we convince ourselves we simply weren't built to carry the weight of greatness.
I look at the fear of success like winning a massive multi-million-dollar lottery, but being completely terrified to actually drive to the lottery office and cash the ticket.
That is a great comparison.
Like you have the winning numbers in your hand. It's the windfall you've always dreamed of. But you stare at that ticket on your kitchen counter and you start thinking, man, the taxes on this are going to be a nightmare.
Like the logistics.
Every distant relative I haven't spoken to in a decade is going to come out of the woodwork asking for money. I'm going to have to hire lawyers, accountants. My quiet, predictable life is going to be completely destroyed.
So it's easier to just do nothing.
Exactly. So instead of claiming the prize, you just leave the winning ticket sitting there and you go back to your stressful but familiar minimum wage job.
What you are describing with that analogy is the profound fear of losing an old identity. Fearing success is essentially fearing the death of who you used to be.
Wow. Fearing the death of who you used to be.
Yeah. People often prefer the familiar discomfort of being stuck over the completely unknown terrain of thriving. In failure, the expectations are comfortably low. You know the rules of being stuck. You know how to navigate disappointment. You do not know the rules of being wildly successful. It requires an entirely new set of coping mechanisms.
So look at your own life. Think about where you might be leaving your own winning ticket on the nightstand right now. Like, what is the success you are secretly avoiding because you don't want to deal with the inevitable disruption it will bring to your comfortable routine?
That's a heavy question.
It is, because if we are paralyzed by the fear of failure on one side and the fear of success on the other side, we are completely immobilized. So how do we break the tie?
Casey argues that to break that paralysis, you cannot simply try to be brave.
Oh, really?
No. You have to replace those paralyzing fears with a totally different, much more powerful kind of fear.
This is a major paradigm shift in the text. The core concept she introduces is that whatever you fear is ultimately what you give absolute power and influence to in your life.
Exactly.
She writes, if you fear what other people think, that means you respect them so much that their opinions matter. You are literally handing them authority over your life's purpose.
Right. And to counteract this, she introduces the concept of the good fear through the biblical lens of the Proverbs 31 woman. Now, regardless of a reader's religious background, the structural psychology at play here is fascinating.
Tell me more about that.
Well, the text notes that this woman can laugh at the days to come, meaning she possesses zero anxiety about the unpredictable future, not because she is a hyper-organized superhuman who has perfectly controlled all variables, but because she fears the Lord.
Okay, and Casey gives some incredible modern examples of people living with this kind of overarching purpose, acting against crazy odds. She talks about her friend Kristen, who tragically lost her baby daughter, Sophia, but somehow found the strength to start an organization teaching others how to find joy amid profound loss.
Unbelievable strength.
She talks about Hannah, who started the More Love Letters movement in New York City, leaving encouraging letters for total strangers, and Jimmy Wayne, who walked halfway across the United States to raise awareness for teens aging out of the foster care system.
Such inspiring stories.
Right. These people aren't acting out of a neurotic desire for perfection. They are acting out of an alignment with something much bigger than themselves.
And understanding this requires a profound reframing of the word fear. In our modern vernacular, fear is almost exclusively a negative emotion associated with avoidance, panic, and stress. But in this specific philosophical context, fear equates to reverence, profound respect, and ultimate submission to a higher authority. By choosing to fear God, or, in a secular sense, to submit your ego entirely to a higher, ultimate purpose, the smaller, paralyzing fears of daily life are rendered powerless.
It just changes everything.
It completely changes your incentive structure. It shifts your core motivation away from anxious self-preservation and towards building a legacy that outlasts you.
But let me push back on the semantics here for a second, because words shape our reality, right?
Oh, sure.
Why use a heavy, loaded word like fear to describe a positive alignment with your purpose? Why not just call it reverence or passion or dedication?
The use of the word fear is intentional and necessary because it acknowledges the gravity, the weight, and the absolute demand of the commitment. Passion implies something you pursue when you feel inspired. Reverence implies passive respect.
Okay, I see the difference.
But this good fear implies a structural reordering of your entire life's priorities. It is acknowledging that your ultimate purpose has the authority to demand everything from you, even when it is wildly inconvenient or uncomfortable.
That makes sense. It makes me think of an old-fashioned balancing scale. If you are constantly weighing all these little worldly anxieties, the fear of a bad performance review, the fear of missing a deadline, the fear of someone unfollowing you on social media.
Those are all common ones.
Those are like pebbles dropped onto the scale. They cause the needle to jump around frantically all day long.
Yeah.
But if you take a massive bowling ball, which represents your ultimate overarching purpose, that good fear, and you drop it onto the scale maxes out.
It just slams down.
Exactly. It slams to the bottom. All those scattered pebbles suddenly don't even register anymore. They haven't disappeared, but they are rendered mathematically irrelevant. The bowling ball dictates the weight.
By assigning ultimate weight to one core belief or purpose, you naturally and effortlessly make all other anxieties feel incredibly light in comparison. You don't have to fight the pebbles, you just have to drop the bowling ball.
So once we identify this giant bowling ball of purpose, we have to pivot to the messy reality of actually trying to live it out. Because human beings are terrible at smooth transitions. When we realize we are living out of alignment and we need to fix ourselves, we almost always wildly overcorrect.
Oh yeah. And Casey shares a deeply revealing, almost darkly comedic anecdote about a therapist she went to see during her recovery from her eating disorder.
Ah, the infamous Snickers bar incident.
Yes. The therapist literally holds a Snickers bar 4 inches from Casey's face and tells her, if you can learn to be comfortable eating a Snickers bar, you will be cured.
Which is so profoundly missing the point of an eating disorder.
It completely ignores the root pathology. Casey realizes instantly that this therapist is only trying to treat the surface symptom, the literal consumption of calories, and completely ignoring the heart of the issue, which is the crushing shame and the pathological need for control.
Right.
She notes that surface changes, like painting a room or forcing yourself to eat a candy bar, might disrupt a pattern for a moment, but they do not transform the heart living inside the pattern.
And this ties into a massive societal lie that we are all sold constantly. The lie that balance and success are opposites. We have this toxic go big or go home mentality that forces us to live in extreme black and white.
All or nothing.
Exactly. We think I either have to give 110%, optimize my morning routine and be absolutely perfect, or I eat one piece of junk food and I am a total irredeemable failure.
And we see this play out tragically when Casey attempts to let go of her rigid control. Because she doesn't know how to navigate the middle ground, she swings violently in the exact opposite direction. She calls it the bumpy, scary, extreme carriage.
This section of the book is incredibly raw. I mean, she swings from severe caloric restriction to frantic, uncontrollable binging. She describes a night where she goes through the McDonald's drive-thru, then hits a Burger King 10 minutes later, then stops at a restaurant, then a mini-mart, just frantically trying to fill the void.
It's heartbreaking.
The physical and emotional fallout of this extreme swing is staggering. She gains 50 pounds in 5 months. She starts skipping her therapy sessions. She starts partying excessively just to numb the overwhelming shame.
Which is another form of escape.
Right. And she frantically buys piles of unread self-help books, trying to patch the gaping holes in her soul with these external fixes.
The mechanism behind this pendulum swing is deeply neurological, actually.
How so?
When you heavily restrict calories, you deplete your brain's dopamine receptors. Your body genuinely thinks it is starving in a famine. So when you finally break that restriction, the brain demands a massive influx of high-calorie, dopamine-rich food to ensure survival.
So it's biologically driven.
Partially, yes. But psychologically, extremes also provide a false sense of security for a perfectionist. Strict, rigid rules like I never eat chocolate or I never leave the office before 8 p.m. are emotionally much easier to follow than navigating the highly nuanced, constantly shifting gray area of moderation.
Because moderation is hard.
Moderation requires continuous, real-time decision-making, self-awareness, and self-trust. Extremes require none of that. You just blindly follow the absolute rule.
So the binging wasn't actually a loss of control. It was just a different manifestation of the exact same underlying control issue as the starvation. She was still using food to regulate her anxiety.
Precisely. Both the starvation and the binging were mechanisms to avoid sitting with the uncomfortable, quiet reality of the present moment. They are both numbing agents.
It's like trying to drive a car by either yanking the emergency brake all the way up and refusing to move, or completely flooring the gas pedal into oncoming traffic, with absolutely no idea how to gently use the steering wheel to navigate the curves in the road.
And a car driven that way will inevitably destroy its own transmission, just as a life lived in extremes will inevitably lead to a physical or mental breakdown.
So how can someone recognize if their current hustle, their 80-hour work week, their meticulously color-coded calendar, their obsession with inbox zero is actually just an extreme coping mechanism disguised as ambition?
You have to interrogate the emotional state underlying the action. Is your hustle driven by a joyful, expansive pursuit of a larger purpose? Or is it driven by a frantic, white-knuckled terror of falling behind?
That's a huge distinction.
It is. If the thought of taking a day off or leaving a few emails unread causes you acute physiological anxiety, your hustle is not ambition. It is an extreme coping mechanism meant to numb a deeper fear of inadequacy.
That is a tough pill to swallow, but absolutely necessary. Acknowledging that the messy, unglamorous middle is where true balance and actual success live, we have to talk about how to get there. Because we cannot just leave you sitting in an existential crisis about your calendar. We need to start gently steering the car.
Yes, and Casey provides some very clear, actionable steps to jolt the reader out of paralysis. And it starts with the deceptively simple question that we ask each other a dozen times a day. How are you?
But she doesn't mean the polite, socially acceptable version, right? Not the passing in the hallway, how are you, where the only legally permitted answer is, I'm fine, just busy.
No, not at all. She prompts the reader to genuinely answer the question, to find the deep, uncomfortable, vulnerable truth. Because saying, I'm fine, when you are unequivocally not fine, is the ultimate defense mechanism of perfectionism.
It just shuts everything down.
Exactly. It immediately shuts down the conversation, projects an illusion of control, and deeply isolates you.
When you answer truthfully, when you say, honestly, I'm completely overwhelmed today and I feel like I'm failing, you give the other person an unspoken, profound invitation to do the exact same thing. Vulnerability invites connection.
Perfectionism isolates, but vulnerability connects. When you admit how you truly are, you shatter the facade of fine. That facade is the linchpin that holds the entire perfectionist structure together. Once it cracks, the pressure begins to release.
She then moves from that internal shift to external action. She suggests a sticky note exercise,
hmm
literally writing down the phrase, I was created for a purpose, and it's time to make it happen, and physically sticking it on your bathroom mirror or the dashboard of your car or your computer monitor.
Taking it a step further into action, she introduces the 5-minute challenge. The directive is to do one small thing, right now, today, that you have been actively afraid of. Sending a difficult email you've been putting off, saying you were sorry to someone you hurt, or making a phone call you've been avoiding.
I do have to point out the irony here, though. We have spent this entire deep dive deconstructing deep-seated psychological trauma, evolutionary biology, the toxic nature of elite institutions, and the complex neurobiology of eating disorders.
And we end on a sticky note.
Right. The ultimate solution starts with something as seemingly trite as a sticky note and a 5-minute task.
I know, it seems wildly disproportionate to the scale of the problem.
Yeah.
But this is where the neuroscience of small actions comes into play. Why does a 5-minute task matter against a lifetime of perfectionism?
Yeah, why does it?
Because any physical action taken in the direction of your fear breaks the neural feedback loop of anxiety. Anxiety feeds on stagnation and rumination. When you sit and overthink, your amygdala runs wild.
Okay.
But when you take a physical action, even a tiny one, you force your brain to move blood flow and electrical activity from the fear processing center into the prefrontal cortex, which handles executive functioning and motor control. You literally change the active geography of your brain.
Oh, wow. So it's not just a cute trick.
Not at all. A sticky note isn't just a cheesy self-help trope. It's a disruptive, daily interrupt to your deeply ingrained neural pathways.
A disruptive daily interrupt. It's like manually resetting the router when the malware acts up. Seeing these small steps not as trivial, but as the literal spark plugs required to restart the engine of your purpose.
Small hinges swing big doors. The transition from extreme, white-knuckle paralysis to purposeful living is not achieved in one giant leap. It is paved with 5-minute increments of daily courage.
We have covered massive ground today. We have traveled from the agonizing grip of the Carnegie Mellon treadmill and the suffocating invisible weight of the cultural shoulds. We've personified and interrogated the dual, paralyzing fears of both failure and success.
We really went deep.
We did. And finally, we've explored what it means to abandon that violent, bumpy, scary extreme roller coaster for the steady, unglamorous, but incredibly resilient grace of true purpose.
It's the transition from trying to forcefully control every variable of your life to surrendering to the reality of what actually matters most.
We established earlier that your fear is truly just a reflection of what you highly respect. It shows what you give ultimate authority to in your life. So think about this. What would happen if, starting tomorrow morning, you explicitly, consciously chose to respect your own potential more than you respect your potential to fail? If your abnormal fear, that psychological paralysis that keeps you stuck in the Chinese finger trap, completely vanished overnight while you slept, what is the very first thing you would do when you woke up?